Hey, so right now what I'd like to talk about is what it means to be moral. Now, we all like to set our standards for what we think is right and what we think is wrong. Like, I'll set a standard for what I think is right and wrong. You'll set your standard. Like, you might think that being moral means to care for other people. But we might also understand that someone like Hitler would say that what's right is ethnically cleansing the world. Or the Spartans might have said what's right is being tough. Now, how do I know which one of these standards is right? Well, I know I'm about to pull a Ravi Zacharias and go all philosophical on you, but if we're to define morality, we must first have an evil to distinguish from a good. We must have a standard set of evil, and we must be able to distinguish it from a standard set of good. For that, we need a moral law to exist. A moral law. For that to exist, we need a creator, a moral lawgiver to design it. Without that, there's no moral law. Without a moral law, there's no distinguishable good and evil. And without good and evil, then morality just doesn't exist. There's no objective morality. It's all an illusion. It comes down to our opinions. And that's what leaves much of our world completely divisive. But if there is an objective morality, then we need a creator to design it. And according to the scriptures, that designer is God. Now, a lot of the time we might look in the Bible and we think, oh, I don't like what it says right here. Like, you might think that the Bible is chauvinistic with women. First of all, that's not true, and second of all, you're kind of using your own moral standard too. But if there really is a moral lawgiver or a creator of the universe, then we have to assume that God has his own personality, and if he really is omniscient and infinitely wise, then we have to trust his judgment rather than our own. Let's put this in a practical sense before we put this in a scriptural sense. So, have you ever met anybody who thought exactly as you did, or had the exact same personality as you? Probably not, right? So, if we are to assume that there is a personal God, then we have to assume that he has his own personality and he's not going to think like us. And again, if he is omniscient and infinitely wise, then we have to abandon our own views of what's right and wrong and trust his. He says here in Isaiah 55:8-9, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." So, there you have it. If God really is personal and sovereign over the universe, then he's the one that gets to decide what's right and wrong. And if that's the case, then we have absolutely no say in what's right and wrong. And if that is the case, then once we find out about it, we have to sacrifice our own views and adhere to his. I remember when I had to do that, like, I used to think the idea of waiting until marriage to have sex was ridiculous. And I thought the Bible in some sense was kind of chauvinistic. But I thought, it kind of changes with the times, but there is no expiration date. What's true is not that our society has progressed, but we've tried to move away from God's law, just as any other time has. We might think that we're better and that we finally got it, but unless we adhere to the morality of the sovereign God, then we miss the point. Like with me and premarital sex, like, I eventually, well, first I accepted that because God says it's wrong, then it's wrong. And eventually I also learned why God says it's wrong. So even if we don't completely understand him, then we must always remember that we can trust his judgment. He knows our best interest better than we do, and he gave us the commandments for our best interests. Like, without that, then again, morality is just down to a matter of opinion. And so, like, you can't fault Hitler for the Holocaust if that's the case, and I can't fault you for faulting him, and you can't fault me for faulting you for faulting him, and so on and so forth. And some people are willing to go that way, but if an objective morality does exist, then we need the Creator to give it to us. And thankfully in the Scriptures, He has given it to us.